Hi everyone, it's Jody. For today's stencil design, I decided that we would start with the Tumbler stencil. And I marked this one, actually the stencil itself is oriented this way, but I decided to turn it on its side and mark it the opposite direction. So now that I've marked it, the main thing that I need to do for this particular design is get the actual tumblers stitched in. You could do it kind of as you go. I mean, my path isn't necessarily the only path. That you may find a path that works better for you. But I find that it's just makes it easier for me if I stitch in these main lines. So I'm going to start by doing that. And I'm just going to go ahead and stitch back and forth the horizontal lines, and then I'll go ahead and do these ones. So let's get that done real quick. And I'm going to start over here only because I know that I want to end in the bottom left corner to start doing the actual designs. So I'm going to start over here. You can start wherever you like. I'm going to use a longer ruler just because when I get to these long ones, I'm going to need that. And so kind of one of the cool things about this design is that if you're not totally comfortable with a ruler, it's a really easy one to do as long as you can stitch one straight line, because it really is nothing more than straight lines. So let me go ahead and get these lines stitched in here. I just want to stay on those stenciled lines. If you go off a little bit, it really is not the end of the world, because, you know, once the stencil lines are gone, no one will know that you weren't on the line. And if you need to, come to the point and you need to hit your stop button, that's fine till you readjust your ruler. Sometimes I do need to, sometimes I don't. Just kind of depends. And I generally, when I'm stitching these, I'm just trying to shoot for kind of stitch in the middle of the line. One of the big bonuses, if you can stay as much on the line as possible, it kind of gets rid of some of the stencil powder for you, instead of having to worry about getting it off so much at the end. So now let me go ahead and do these long lines. Vertical ones. Scoot along the bottom here. This one last line on the side here. Okay, so that's kind of the main framework. That is in. We really, if you wanted to, you could brush off your stencil powder at this point, because we don't really need any other markings, because this design is nothing more than echoing inside each one of these now tumbler shapes that's turned on its side. And you just want to be mindful, if you were going to do this, how big you're going to make your echoes and how many will fit. So I'm going to do, I wanted to do 3 1/2-inch echoes, but they're not going to fit. The center thing would be way too close. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but one thing I do know is that if you do it so many echoes so that you're going to end up with a really narrow space, if each of your narrow spaces isn't the same, it's going to be super obvious. So for me, I generally will just not do that, because there's going to be bobbles here and there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1/4 inch echo to start. So I'm just lining my ruler up on that line. And at this point, I'm just watching that my hopping foot is touching that line because I know that's 1/4 of an inch. Same thing here. I'm watching my hopping foot gets to that line right here. I'm going to stop. My ruler over here. And now I'm going to do a 1/2 inch echo. I'm not good at judging this, but we'll see here. I generally use mostly 1/4 inch lines because you don't have to, it's not as hard to line up, I guess. And then I'm going to do one more 1/4 inch line. So I'm just echoing that previous line. Now at this point, you know, I'm thinking of this as like I would use this in a border or maybe even as a background. If I were going to use this as a background design, I might decide to come in here and do some kind of a fill. But for a border design, I really, like, I'm thinking I want this to be a little more open. So I'm done with that shape. So now all we're going to need to do is that same exact thing for each one of these tumbler shapes. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and, since I'm right here on the edge, I'm going to work my way. I should have went the other way, but that's okay. I'm just going to echo up here. So I want to remember that I did a 1/4 inch. Watch for my foot to hit there. And then a 1/2 inch. Quarter inch. And then since I'm close to the edge, I'll go ahead and travel out here. This next one, do my 1/4 inch, a little bit too far. Half inch. And a 1/4 inch. So now for this next row, we are going to, let me get up to the top here, and I'm just going to backtrack right along that other line. Now in this row going down this way, I'm going to change the direction. So these ones were going all going up that way, and then every other one I'm going to alternate. So this next one is going to go towards me. Same thing, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Whoop. Along there. Now I am using because I knew I was going to backtrack on previously stitched lines. In general, my own personal quilts, I would be doing this in matching thread because it makes the backtracking easier if you know you need to backtrack. And this is contrasting thread, not terribly contrasting, but it is also a 60 weight. So it makes the backtracking less noticeable. So in general, you know, if I were doing my own quilt, I would probably be using probably a 30 or 40 weight thread, but it would be in a matching color. So then I don't worry too much about the backtracking because the thread blends in. But I was being lazy, and this is what is on my machine. So I'm going to come up here, backtrack down to the next one. Again, 1/4 inch, watching for the foot to get right to that line. You could do them all the same direction if you want. I just think it kind of adds a little more interest, I guess, movement when you do alternating directions. Travel down to the bottom, this last row. So this one, you notice, this is going back the direction of the first row, so that they're alternated. It's also, this would be a good design too to play around with and stitch if you were maybe new to using a ruler, because it's really it's just straight lines, but you want them to be, you know, each one somewhat similar. They don't have to be exactly perfect, but it's a really, it would be a good design to kind of practice your accuracy. So sneak up here and get this last one. See, I went a little bit too far, and if I do that, then I just kind of back up a stitch or whatever I need to kind of get where I should have been. And that's that. And it really, I mean, it's not a whole lot of stitching, so it doesn't take a lot of time. It's fairly quick. Now, if I were, and I think I really like it. You know, can see the different shifting of the lines. It's really dimensional, I think. So you can see, you know, you could have filled these, would have added a little more quilting. I mean, I think, but this is plenty of quilting. If I were doing this in a border, my ideal situation would be to line it up just as this is, and let's pretend, you know, if this is the bottom of the border and this is the top of the border, I could have done these ones to kind of look like another one was there, but I usually will do something just different out here And in this case, I might choose to do like just little 1/4 inch straight lines here, or maybe even a fill, like even something maybe pebbling, because this is all so angular. I would fill between where the design ends and the edge of the actual border. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that design, and I'll see you next time. Bye.